All right, everyone. I'm Donnie, or Donald, whatever you want to call me. Welcome to Intro to Social Engineering. So, some of the things I'm going to be going over today are going to be the principles of influence and persuasion, the social engineering lifecycle, different types of social engineering attacks, as well as some known hacks due to social engineering if we get to that today. So, does anyone know what the heck social engineering is?
It is finding exploits in humans instead of technology.
Good. Yes. Basically, people hacking. Well, kind of, I guess, general definition of just a broad range of malicious activities accomplished through human interaction, like Nick said. You're going to be using psychology to manipulate and influence people to make them create security mistakes or give away sensitive information. So, some principles that go into social engineering to help help this process along are going to be 6 principles of influence persuasion by Dr. Probably going to butcher this, Cialdini, who is a professor and does research on psychology. These principles are going to be reciprocity, commitment and consistency, social proof, authority, liking, and scarcity. So, what reciprocity is I'm sure most of you have had this happen to you at one point. Someone gives you a gift or they do you a favor. You're most likely going to want to do this same gesture back to them. You'll also want to return a favor or return a gift. And this can lead to certain relationship with that person or allowing for other nefarious acts to go down. As with network intelligence, a cybersecurity company, they were able to get a system administrator to give them confidential information by offering them a lot of study material for one of their upcoming exams. So commitment and consistency. When a person makes a choice or a judgment, or they take a stand on a particular topic, they're going to be more consistent in the way that they regard that commitment. And so, kind of a way go about this with consistency is the network intelligence posed as a system posed as an auditor, and they interviewed system administrators at a company. At first, it was just simple little questions. They didn't really push too far into it, but they kept coming back repeatedly, and it took about 5 days for anyone to realize that these people weren't actually auditors, which it's kind of scary that you can have just people come in, pretend to be other people, and they'll believe them. Social proof is another big one that I'm sure a lot of you have also felt or have experienced, is that when you're in uncertain situations, you'll tend to look at the people around you for a particular behavior or action that you'll take that seems correct. So in general, in social media, if you receive, say, a friend request from somebody or I guess, not really sure how LinkedIn works, but let's go with Facebook. So you receive a friend request, you see they have like 20 mutual friends with you and a bunch of them are your good friends. You're more likely to add them as well because you have the social proof that, oh, other of my friends are actually friends with this person. Maybe I might know them. Maybe there's some connection here that they're trying to get at. Or I guess in another context, imagine that you wake up you're in the middle of a contest. You have no idea what the heck's going on. The contest is about to start. So what do? You're most likely going to look at the people around you to see what they're doing, how they are trying to prepare for this competition, and probably base most of your actions on what they're doing. Liking, another principle that a lot of us probably have dealt with in our time. People are more likely to say yes to somebody they know or like. So things that influence the factors of how much we like somebody can include people that are similar to us, people who pay us compliments, and as well as people who work together with us to achieve similar goals. As I mean, who doesn't like a compliment, right? Authority was one of the really interesting ones, where people are more likely to obey people who are in a position of authority or they seem to be credible and knowledgeable in the area. In network intelligence's case, they are able to fake authority letters from the government or from government agencies to managing directors, and a good amount of the time they're able to get people to simply comply with their request because the letters were from a government agency. Or another scary experiment I can talk about is going to be the Milgram experiments, which if we have time later, I can bring that up if you guys want to know about it. Yes?
Are those is that a different name for the Stanford experiments?
Yeah, I think that's different. I want to say the Milgram experiments happened with or at Yale. I'm not entirely certain on that one, so don't quote me on that. So the last principle we're going to go into is scarcity. So a lot of us will see this in like economic senses, when there's very little of something, the demand is usually very high. So going away from not looking at it in like an economic standpoint, but from a time standpoint, yeah, I think I said that right. When you have, say, has anyone ever gotten those emails or like letters saying that there's like this really good sale and you have like 5 minutes to respond to it or anything like that? They're creating the scarcity of time to get you to influence you to purchase this item at their discounted rate. So next I'm just going to go into the social engineering life cycle of just how the whole process usually plays out and the steps that you'll usually take along the way. So first off, when you're starting, you're going to want to gather information. The whole likelihood of your success in the overall attack is going to be dependent upon the information that you get, or the quality and amount of information that you get. And some information you can get is going to be potential attack vectors, possible passwords, identities of people, or identify plausible responses for people. So if you're going to be in a conversation, you can give accurate responses or more convincing responses. Become more familiar and comfortable with the target that you're attacking, as well as creating strong pretexts, which I'll go into in a little bit. The next step after you're gathering information is you're going to want to build a relationship and rapport with your target. Because the more comfortable and more close you get to your target and you can build that relationship of trust, the more likely they're going to want to do stuff for you. Yes?
What does rapport mean?
Rapport, I'm a little fuzzy on that. I want to say it's like reputability, or wow, I cannot talk. Like how reputable you are, I think. So yeah, so in this phase, trying to build a strong relationship and building a strong relationship and credibility with your target will increase their cooperativeness with you in the extent of your attack. So now we're going to move into exploitation, and here you're going to be several things. You're going to be developing relationships further, because you're going to be continuously developing those relationships to make sure that you don't get caught, because that's not going to be good if you get found out. You're going to maintain that momentum of compliance that you build up in stage 2 in your building up relationships phase. And for successful exploitations, you're going to find you can get people to disclose usernames or passwords to you, get people to open infected emails, or even tailgating with having another employee of the company hold the door for you, even though you might not actually work there. Oh, and also, if you do baiting, you can also get people to stick fishy USBs into computers, which is also a funny little tangent to go on. Yes?
What would baiting be?
Baiting I'm going to go into a little bit later too. But it's the act of, you're going to be playing on the curiosity and greed of a person and say, I'm going to take a USB stick and I'm going to label it, say, like company like spending report, and I'm going to leave it somewhere. Somebody in that company might find it and want to, like, oh, this is important. Maybe I can take a look at this and use it somehow, and then they'll try to stick it in the computer and they're infected. Next, this one is kind of labeled wrong. But the last stage is basically either going to be you finish your attack, you've gained what you've your overall goal has been accomplished, or for other reasons you need to stop the attack and kind of clean up everything everything that you've put into this attack in order for them to not figure out that it was you. And in general, it's bad leaving a target knowing that they've been attacked, as you will most likely get found out, as in most of the large hacks, as they were found out that they actually happen. So instead, you're going to want a good ending to your attack is going to be leaving the target in a position to feel that you were actually helping them and you're still a trustworthy person, and to also tie up your loose ends and get rid of any evidence that anybody is there committing a social engineering attack. So going into some of the attacks, first we're going to start talking about phishing. And I'm sure most of you have dealt with phishing emails, right? Yeah, they're really annoying. So what phishing is, it's a cybercrime where a target is contacted either by email, phone, which phishing, or text message, which is smishing. So they're going to be posing as legitimate businesses, people, or institutes trying to get you to click on fishy links in order to get you to give them personally identifiable information about you, bank or credit card information, or account credentials. Another more directed form of phishing is going to be spear phishing, where normally with a phishing attack, the attack range is going to be more broad and the emails are going to be more generic, versus with spear phishing, the attacks are going to be more directed at specific targets, and the emails will be more will be of a lot higher quality and tailored to those specific targets. And just for like statistics of phishing versus spear phishing, normal phishing emails had about a 5% success rate for those that were opened, versus about 50% for spear phishing. And the success rate for your spear phishing attack is going to be heavily based on your quality of OSINT gain, which is open source intelligence, such as public information about you, social media information, etc. So some ways to prevent spear phishing and phishing in general: don't click on fishy links. Just don't do it. And if you end up clicking on any fishy links that you're not sure about, always definitely check the URL, as most of the time you can actually tell whether you're actually on the right website you're at or not. How to not generate good liking of somebody. So like a first example of subdomaining is, like, the website itself looks like you're completely at Facebook, like no difference, except that if you just glance over at the actual domain itself, it says Facebook. But if you don't actually notice at the very end where it says infoknown.com, that's actually not the correct website. And also another way to kind of fake this is similar naming, where it looks like the name. However, if you glance over it quickly, you might notice, but if you actually look at it carefully, some of the letters will actually be switched in order to kind of trick you into believing it might be the real website or not. So moving into phishing, which is going to be phone phishing. Think like phone scams on all those fun little voicemails you get from fake robots. So phishing attacks can involve interactive voice response systems, such as the robotic voices that can ask you for PIN numbers or social security numbers, or to verify specific account details over a call. Another technique that phishing attacks will use is also caller ID spoofing, where it will look like it'll be coming from a reputable business or institute, but is actually not them. And so in that case, they can either do caller ID spoofing or calling from similar area codes to you in order to get you to pick it up, as you might think it's a local in your area that might be trying to contact you. And scare tactics and no hang up are also techniques used with phishing. And no hang up I can talk about a little bit later if you guys want to know about it. It's a little interesting, and if anyone knows a little bit more about how landlines and telecommunication works, please feel free to talk about that with me. So like ways for phishing prevention: don't answer calls from unknown numbers, and if you do answer them, don't give out any personal information, as companies aren't usually going to call you out of the blue and start asking you for your account information. There are caller ID apps that help filter out spam numbers, albeit they don't filter all of them. They will help you filter out a good amount of them. So still don't fully trust caller ID, and treat phishing scams like any other phishing attempt. And in the event that a phishing scammer will give you a number to call rather than actually using their number, look up the number yourself and verify whether it is from the actual business itself. And then if you end up on the phone with a potential phisher, try using a different phone after the call, as the no hang up is an interesting case where the victim will hang up their phone. However, the attacker will hold onto the line, keeping the connection live. And in doing this, when the victim begins to call either the number that the scammer gave them or tries to call the actual number, the victim will end up being connected back to the spammer, or to the phisher, which is a strange case I'm not fully understanding of, but it is something that happens. So then going into smishing, which is phishing over SMS. This one doesn't seem too prevalent, at least not with me. I haven't really seen many attempts at least towards me, SMS phishing attacks, where you'll get a text message saying to check out this link, or any contests or like gift card redemption, stuff like that. So just don't. They also will try to get you to reply with certain types of information, like other phishing attacks, like account information, PIN numbers, etc. And similar with other phishing attacks, just don't trust them. Don't click on any fishy links. Numbers like 5,000 apparently are linked to email to text services, which help hide attackers' actual phone numbers that when they're trying to contact you. And if you ever get any sort of text from, say, a financial institution asking for account information, don't believe it, as most institutions aren't going to text you and ask you for your account information. Did I also mention don't click on random links? Because I hate those things. So earlier I was talking a little bit about pretexting. And what pretexting is the art of fabricating a scenario for you to end up developing a relationship with somebody. So you're going to take on either a fabricated scenario or persona and attempt to gain someone's trust to disclose information. And this can include impersonating coworkers, police officers, people in a position of authority, or people that are in a position to have a right to know the information. If you have a really best friend or close somebody to you that you share personal information with, or assuming a new identity and creating a believable backstory. And how well the pretext actually performs is dependent on the information that you gathered and the quality of that information. So some examples, if you're trying to social engineer a company and you're posing as an outside tech service, but they don't actually have an outside tech service, all of the servicing is done in-house, you're gonna run into some funny situations. You're gonna show up and you're like, yeah, I'm from tech support, let me delete your cookies for you, and everyone's gonna look at you like, who the hell are you? Why are you here? Or if you're trying to impersonate somebody, maybe you don't know their exact schedule for being in the building, or if another service is going to be coming, to the building and you're trying to impersonate them, what happens if you run into them? Everyone's going to be looking at you funny, and no one wants this. So, in a scenario where you have fake backgrounds and people trying to deceive you, how can you defend against this? Well, like with the impersonating a service company, when you receive like emails, when the company receives an email, they should definitely check with the actual company just to make sure that they are actually sending this out, as just random service responses might not be that believable. If you see suspicious persons in the building, definitely ask them who their superiors are, or ask them for identification to see who they actually are. And your best bet is just, in any way, just try to punch holes in their story, because they usually crumble after that point. So the next one, we talked a little bit about earlier, we're going to go into baiting. So baiting relies on false promise to entice greed and curiosity of the victim. So in a physical example, marking a USB or CD as confidential, employee salary, and just leaving them places. People are going to probably pick those up and be like, this looks important, maybe I can gain some information out of this, or even leverage this somehow with the company. Or maybe they're just curious as to how much bill their neighbor makes compared to them. So you distribute these CDs and DVDs, CDs, and they're all going to be infected with some sort of malware. So once they stick them into their computer, it's going to take advantage of auto run, and boom, your computer is infected. Another one is going to be a digital example where you'll have enticing ads that lead you to download software that might be a little too good to be true, which there's too many of those. So baiting prevention, it's kind of, I feel like it's a little bit of a no-brainer, but don't stick random things into your computer. It's never good. Nothing good ever comes out of it unless you have, yes?
So like if I did find just like a random USB stick and I like really wanted to find out what was on it, but I know about baiting and so I know that it's like possibly like malware or something, is there anything I can do to just like check what's on it without like compromising my computer? Do I just like stick it into one of the school computers?
Definitely do not stick it into the school computers. People will be mad at you. We're mad at you, Nick. The use of a secure VPN, or not VPN, a virtual machine, you can most likely test that without bringing harm to the actual system itself. And you'll get to see what fun things it can do. But probably disconnect the internet, because there might be other consequences with that. And also avoid suspicious ads, as with, did you have your hand up?
No, it's good.
Okay. Yeah, avoid suspicious ads and tempting offers, because it's never good. Don't believe them. So next we're going to go into tailgating. And definitely not like the picture. This is not how tailgating is done. So tailgating is an attack where a person gains unwanted access to a building or facility using tricks and social tactics. And to do this, you can wait for another employee that's going to walk into a building that requires, say, keycard access. You can follow closely behind them and grab the door before it closes. Another example would be impersonating a delivery driver and holding a bunch of packages to make it look like you can't really get the door. So you're going to be playing on the person's conscience to kind of help you out, give you a helping hand, and let you in the building. And they might not actually check your credentials as you look like you're trying to deliver things. And another one would be a little less, I feel like, would be pretend to be on a break, and then another employee comes out, wait for them to finish their break, and then go back inside the building with them. And for some reason, I don't know why they wouldn't check you, but that was an example. So preventing tailgating, ask people to identify themselves before they actually come into the building. And also, don't let other people come into the building unless they have their access card or code. because even if you might know the person, I guess that's a touchy one, but if you don't know the person, definitely do not let them in the building, as you have no idea who they are, if they actually have access to the building. And if you have questions, you can probably just contact the people in your company themselves to see who it is, if they actually are. So with all these techniques and principles, what am I going to get at with this really? Just everyone falls for this. There's so many companies that end up falling for phishing scams, and I'm sure all of you hear about data breaches everywhere. One that I don't think I've heard of, talked a lot about, would be Kane Gamble. He is a 15-year-old that was actually able to successfully phish the CIA director and director of national intelligence. Through his social engineering exploits, he was able to gain highly insensitive military documents as well as intelligent operations happening in Iraq and Afghanistan. And some of his other targets were the Secretary of Homeland Security, the FBI Deputy Director, Senior Science and Technology Advisor for Barack Obama, the White House Deputy and National Security Advisor, as well as the U.S. Department of Justice. And this kid is 15. Did I mention that? Through the use of phishing, he was able to persuade Verizon to reveal information about Brennan. And he then leveraged this information to contact AOL and impersonate Brennan. And these methods allowed him to change numbers and security questions and allowed him to gain access to many other accounts along the way. And as a little fun thing, apparently he left for them, is that he set up an auto-forwarding service that would direct phone calls from Clapper's phone to the Free Palestine movement, which Clapper was the Director of National Intelligence. Another one you guys might have heard of was a Target data breach, where about 40 million Target customer credits and debit card information was leaked. It was later discovered that also names, email addresses, and phone numbers of about 70 million additional customers had also been stolen. Now, the workings of this one were kind of interesting, and that it wasn't only Target's fault that this happened, but mainly Target's fault. So Target, for some reason, thought it would be okay to give remote access to their network to their HVAC vendor, Fausia Mechanical Services. Then on the vendor side, they ended up falling for a phishing email and clicked on things. And when you click on things that are in suspicious emails, you get malware. And then that malware then routed itself back to Target's network and installed RAM scrapers onto the POS terminals where credit card and debit card information was able to be read and stolen. So if we could just stop clicking on phishing emails, that would be wonderful. Yes?
What's a RAM scraper?
So the RAM scraper it's a malware that installed itself on the POS, and it would read directly from the RAM as the credit card and as the transaction data was being read into the system. Yes?
How do you read directly from... Are those things running Linux?
I'm not entirely sure on the inner workings of it. I could be wrong. I could be wrong with this. Yes?
So you know how big organizations can minimize the effect that that one of their employees have on the whole organization?
Mm-hmm. So a good practice for a lot of companies that they should do is to have regular example attacks. So having phishing emails that go out through the company, from the company itself, and basically exposing the employees as a whole to the different types of attacks that can happen, so they can be familiar with what they look like, how they happen, and what they should do when they receive these. So overall, just training the employees on the different types of attacks that can happen would play a big role in helping reduce the amount that these people would actually fall for it. Does that kind of answer your question?
yeah, so like training is the only like solution?
Training would be one. Filtering, better filtering for emails, albeit you can't filter everything. Better filters would help. I'm sure there's other ways that I'm not thinking of at the moment, though. Yeah. So, any questions so far?
So it seems like a lot of these best practices are just kind of akin to, I think the phrase I've had used at me is you're an unempathetic person. Keely, like not being nice to people, like letting them into doors and things. Where do you see the line of balancing security risk versus like that one time I wouldn't let my friend into the building after me because I didn't have this ID on me. It was someone else.
Well, I'd say if you personally know the person, you directly know that they work in the same company as you, I could see some leeway with that for sure. But definitely if it's someone you don't know, most likely don't let them into the building. But if you do, definitely check credentials of them as well as check with the security department of the company itself.
Cool.
Any other questions? Anyone want to see oh, go for it.
Is there anywhere I can practice this?
I would highly advise against not practicing this unless you have a particular partner or target that is complying with you and accepts that they are going to be, or that allows you to attack them. Don't do this in the wild. You will end up in a lot of trouble.
So not unlike friends and significant others, it's not a good target for this?
With their consent. Yes. All right, and then there's my sources.